Welcome to another episode of the Bet the Process podcast, where we have probably one of our top 7 guests, Preston Johnson, or Aileen Johnson, as his moniker on the video says. Preston, how are you doing during quarantine? You live in San Clemente now. We won't disclose the address because we don't want any of your stalker followers to show up on your doorstep. But what's the latest for you in the world of quarantine?
Things got a little bit more strict, I think, the last couple of weeks down here in Southern California. Both LA County and then Orange County followed suit, which I think they tend to be more red and Republican down here. So they were reluctant to do so. But the only difference, I think, from where we were at before a couple months back is that they are allowing kids to still go to school if they had already started going to school. So I have a kindergartner that does attend school. They have to wear masks all day. And it's a little shorter and abbreviated. They do a little bit of work at night, on online on a computer. But outside of that, we're pretty much inside, just living life, getting through it.
Nice. And what's been the latest for you in the betting world? You were kind of on a terrible streak for a while. As someone that blindly tells your picks, I know that well. How has that turned around for you? I feel like with basketball starting and, college football becoming like not so egregious to you, you're at least in a better state now where I don't think you're going to have to actually get a real job.
Not yet. We're not to that point yet. I guess I do have a real job though. So I get paid to
You work with Doug
for
Kazarian.
ESPN.
Now, no one would call working with Doug Kazarian a real job.
That doesn't count as one. So
that's called education. That's called being an educator.
I do educate him. I feel like fairly often. Like even what was he? I can't think about the time. He was asking me yesterday about. He's like, so you think the Browns are the Ravens are the
square
side?
Dog?
And I was like, when we did the show on Tuesday, the line was like pick or -1.
It was -1.
And I was like, so yeah, I'm not going to tell you to bet -3, -120 now. I do think the Ravens win the game, but anyway, so he's still coming around to trying to learn the nuances of the market to some extent. But I'm happy to help.
Do you ever really think he's going to learn the nuances of the market? Because, like, God bless Doug's soul. We all believe he's one of the kindest, nicest humans we know.
Totally,
great dude. Yeah. But like, he's been around sports betting for quite some time, and for him to still say the things he says or believe the things he believes. Like, he picks up little tidbits here and there, right? But, like, generally he still has a very, like, stubborn attitude towards sports betting, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's that necessarily. I think he's just stubborn in that if he sees something and he believes, like, this is, like, kind of just not necessarily eye test, but to some extent, like, I think I've done this before, it's worked before, therefore it's always going to work or something to that nature. I mean, I think it's one of the things – I've had to be more open to it, especially in the NFL, even within this season, is changing approaches and being open to doing things a little bit differently and knowing that it can better your process and, ultimately be more profitable. And I haven't changed anything for college football. It's nice. I think last week finally just like had a week that just didn't lose any games, just couldn't miss anything. It's just like been so long since I had one of those. Yes, about basketball. Basketball's been a great start. So that's obviously helpful for the attitude, but sometimes, whether you're winning or losing, you should always be kind of checking what you're doing, your process as a whole, and making adjustments, listening to other people, being open to their opinions or their processes themselves. And it goes a long way, I think, if you can at least have that headspace going into this.
Let's be honest. Your superpower is your ability to be negative in any circumstance, right? I mean, that's really what you're good at.
You got to reverse jinx anything when you have the opportunity to. Yeah.
Preston, you witnessed you were going for the actual jinx. It was you last weekend in the Rutgers Maryland game who said he was a favorite to miss the field goal now. Wasn't it?
I think you were the one who took over, but yeah, that one was crazy.
I took over.
Yeah. Well, you took over and it helped. I think.
No, I took under. Rutgers Maryland.
You took over the jinxing.
Oh, I mean, I reversed
the bet was under. Yes.
You were like.
Can you guys explain to us what you're talking about, or
so
at least
Rutgers,
to the listeners?
The Rutgers Maryland game was 3-0 at halftime. I had a bet of under 58, and it came down to a field goal in overtime, a 47-yarder in overtime. How does one kick a 47-yard field goal in overtime when you start at the 25? Good question.
I can probably answer that.
Yeah.
you lose, let's see, 15 yards? No,
that's really
7
bad.
yards.
Yeah. Anyway, Preston decided to say he was a dog to make the field goal at that point. And I said, no, he's going to make it. Like, it's over.
Sorry,
It's
you
like,
lose 5 yards. 5 yards.
Yeah. Speaking of like that yard conversion, why do teams always attempt them 7 yards back from the line of scrimmage? Why is that where the holder is? Why not on certain field goals? Like if you're really concerned about a block, why not snap it further back?
Especially when you're like kicking
and then you can give like, think about a long field goal. Give the kicker like time to have a more of a running start. Snap it further back, and so he can like, it's a longer field goal, but think about how far the guys kick it on kickoffs.
It probably depends a little bit on like you're gonna have to like, coach up a long snapper that's snapped one way his entire life.
He has one job. All he does is long snap.
I know. You know that they're gonna like, the first time they try to go 3 yards further back, he's bowling it to the holder. It's gonna hit the ground 3 yards.
He has to snap it. He has to long snap punt too. He can succeed in two
somewhere
different modes
in
so
between.
far. So maybe you find a long snapper who can do more than two different modes, and suddenly,
Are you saying that we should start training our kids to be like multi-dimensional long snappers for the future?
Rufus, I hear what you're saying, but I also feel like it's the minimal amount of distance, right? That they think there's a fairly low chance that the punt's going to get blocked.
Correct.
Right. I'm talking about field goals.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's the minimal amount of distance that
the field goal.
And so I think there's probably a world where it would make sense to try slightly different things, but this might fall under the category that sometimes the best solution is the one that you can execute as perfectly as possible without actually like in blackjack in the old days, because this all just comes back to blackjack. That's all I ever talk about, is this idea that like the high-low system that we use for counted cards is definitely not the most advanced, advantageous system, but it's the one that you can execute pretty flawlessly if you practice it.
I mean, I practiced the high opt 2, which
is the incremental gain of like doing a slightly longer snap that you don't practice quite as much. And like everything, the cadence is all different, whatnot. Jeff, for that incremental gain.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like, let's say you are at the 45-yard line and you have a decision. Like, do you go for the 62-yard field goal, which your kicker might not have that range under ordinary circumstances, but if you got a longer running start, he'd have more of a chance.
But then he'd have to do a 64-yarder.
67-yarder.
67-yarder.
Yeah. Okay, but think about how much further they can kick it when they have running starts. Like think about on kickoffs.
They don't take that much of like some of the kickers don't even take that much of a running start.
Right, they don't, but I'm saying they would kick it further if they took more of a running start.
Do you know that's true?
Yeah,
probably can't kick it as straight
with kickoffs.
What?
Look at how much further they kick kickoffs.
But they're not taking that much longer of a thing, and they don't have to try to be accurate. Part of it, like the longer running start you take, the fewer accuracy you're going to have.
Well, yeah, there's for sure. Yeah. But if you're like in a situation where it's like,
I think the fact that you're trying to reverse.
I'm talking about high variance situations.
We should actually be talking about how we get kicking out of football. Totally, that's what this conversation should be, because their kicking is the worst. And the fact that they made extra points harder is like the dumbest thing.
I mean, who was it? The Browns decided not to kick extra points in the fourth quarter.
Well, what did you guys think of the sort of the Lewis Greasy Levy explanation about why they went for 2 down 8?
I really wasn't listening to it. I was like, do we have to talk about this again? Like this, it feels like, Jeff, we were talking about this like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I feel like, for the first time. But what did they say?
The process is ahead of a lot of curves, Rufus. We were ahead of a lot of curves.
Look at the trends. Yeah. So I don't usually watch with sound on very frequently. This is what I think is the most interesting part about what happened is measuring. So we know you cut it to 8 and you go for 2, your expected win probability is going to go up. But does it if you're doing it so early or with enough time that the other team decides to be more aggressive down one versus a tie game where, like, for example, Baltimore went for it, I believe, on a fourth down after that fact where they normally would have punted in a tie game. They end up winning the game accordingly. So you're trying to measure, because I think the Browns ended up going for 2 to cut it to 6 with like 14 minutes left.
Yeah, it was very early.
It almost seemed too early where they like got too cute with this, quote unquote analytics the announcers are talking about. So that was, I think, a really interesting kind of outlook on how that game played out, where everyone's going to look and say, oh, well, they got it and they took the lead. It was the right decision. But there are some Ben Baldwin's win probability model. I noticed it actually decreased their chance by 1.2% to win the game. When generally, I think if there were only 2 or 3 minutes left, we would always agree that that's the correct decision. But in that instance, it ended up not being potentially. And the way it broke out, Baltimore ends up winning.
So would you say it kind of reminds me a little bit of the, teams that are down 7 with like a minute to go, they score and they think about like going for 2 to try to win the game now. I think Ron Rivera did that against the Giants earlier this year with like 40 seconds to go. I mean, I see it like if there's 5 seconds to go, you're a heavy underdog in the game. It makes a ton of sense. You have a better chance of making the 2-point conversion than you do of winning in overtime. But when there's 45 seconds left, it's a completely different calculus. And
there's another like 15% that they go kick and win the game or whatever it is. Maybe.
Well, so there's
people don't understand nuance though.
There's 2 things that I think you guys are highlighting that probably the layperson doesn't really get. Which is, one, what you do impacts how aggressive the other team plays.
Yeah.
Which is kind of effed up if you think about it, right? Like ultimately, you should, like every other team should always be playing as optimally as possible, and they don't, right? They play based. This is the whole idea that going up by 3 is probably better in some respects in certain situations than going up by 4. With like less time to go, fewer time to go, and so. What the thing that I had like enjoyed about the ESPN broadcast is that Levy, who is good, like Steve Levy's good, that he brought up the point that you don't want to go to overtime because that's a 50-50 flip, a coin flip at best. And that's like the key to people starting to understand 2-point math. And I've said this before, is them finally understanding that going to overtime, tying the game, is not akin to winning. It's akin to you having a 50% chance to lose the game at least, right? Mm-hmm. In most circumstances. If you give the ball up to someone with a tie, you have less than a 50% chance to win that game.
Yeah.
So
you think Deep Podesta had told Stefanski or whoever to toss to Stefanski that in these situations it makes sense to go for 2. When you're down 8 and late, and
Stefanski's been a good coach. He's done smart things, and
I know. I mean,
I actually thought when they scored that, I thought there was a very good chance, and we were all sitting on, or at least I was sitting on. We were all sitting on the same ticket, right? We're
Ravens
sitting on
plus a half.
Yeah,
and the over.
Yeah. The over was automatic because that's part of my.
That was Jeff's model.
Second half printing press right now.
Jeff's ATM machine.
Yep.
My second half NFL printing press. Anyways, so, all right. What else about the NFL? You said that you are having to rethink things about the NFL this year. What else are you rethinking?
Rethink maybe is not the greatest word. The last month or so, I just decided to stop betting earlier in the week, wait and find out what the COVID situation is when that started becoming more rampant within teams. And then also there's just so many injuries and sort of half injuries. Guys are questionable, this and that. I've just waited, and maybe you've noticed or maybe you haven't. I've just waited and posted, and bet myself into what would be considered normally a counterintuitive, more efficient market. But I've done a lot better the last month, just giving myself more time. And I think being able to evaluate, player by player once it's official and make bets accordingly than just trying to, what I've done in the past more often is betting earlier in the week into a softer market and knowing that more often than not, that's going to be ahead. It wasn't really working. At least it wasn't for the first, 9 or 10 weeks or so. So I made that adjustment, and so far so good. Maybe it's just coincidence as part of the variance within a season, but at least felt more comfortable. My volume's gone down a little bit, and it's at least paid off to this point.
Rufus, have you seen or done anything different this year in the NFL? I know you didn't have second halves going for a while. Now you do again, but like, has anything been different for you?
I mean, I've made the opposite adjustment to Preston. I think I'm like, I need to go earlier. I'm struggling. I'm like, let's go. Like,
you were like that in college too. Yeah.
I was like, let's. Why wait till Monday?
But you've always been a guy that's typically bet pretty early.
So I never bet. Like I've never bet on Sundays. Because it's the Lord's Day. I'm not supposed to bet on Sunday.
Thank you, Rufus.
Appreciate it.
What? Sorry. Anyways, are you Christian?
Depends on who's asking.
How about if Jesus
your mom is asking?
Sort of. I'm like, I'd say I'm closer to Buddhist than Christian these days. Like, I actually used to go to like a Buddhist. I was a member of a Buddhist center in DC. I mean, I grew up Episcopalian. So yeah, I still know like all the words to the Holy Eucharist just because of going to church growing up.
Preston, as a Mormon who is a Christian, let's clarify that. I don't want
more person.
I don't want to have anyone. Which religion that's not Mormon do you have the most sort of like not respect but interest in? Like, what is one that you're like, Rufus said Buddhist and you're like, oh, interesting. And like, what would be one that like you'd be like, huh, if I wasn't Mormon, this is a religion I would actually like explore.
That's a really good question. I've never been asked or thought about before. I think in general, just because, especially I feel like my generation and then even younger, it's like really cool to be atheist and not be a believer of Jesus Christ, which is totally fine. I think everyone can have their own opinion, but I don't think I can single out one religion that like totally interests me more than another. I probably could if I sat down and thought about it for longer, but I think I just respect people that still stand for something and believe in something, whether it's real or not, or ends up being real or not. Like for me, and being, LDS or Mormon, it's a lifestyle that really just brings happiness. Whether I die and don't go anywhere in an afterlife, whether it was all phony, I at least felt like I lived a better life either way. And I felt better about my life either way. And so when I see other people that have, whether it's Buddhism or just, if you're Catholic, whatever it may be, if you have something that you believe in and you're striving to do to be better yourself, to help others, I just think that's super respectable. So just religion in general, maybe it'll make a comeback eventually. But right now, yeah, if you believe in something, I think it's great.
I would like to say, based on that speech, I will be the follower of your new religion. So I think cool. That like preached, like that was very well said. And I mean, that's what attracted me to the Buddhism wasn't like the thought of
the openness,
afterlife, right? Or whatever. It's like, it's the fact that this will help me be happier and like helping other people. And it's more fulfilling. And, I think that's what it's about. Fulfillment.
All right. It's enough on religion. Let's move on. College football.
Do you know what Taleb says about religion? He says it's not about, what does he say? It's not about whether there is a God, but it's just about convincing man that he is not God. I'm reading Anti-Fragile right now.
Do you know what Nate Silver says about religion?
Oh, no.
The opposite of what Taleb says, I'm sure.
I don't actually know what Nate Silver
says. Has he modeled it?
He says, I am God.
He's modeled it with just a regression, so it's fine.
The biblical regression. I like it.
Yeah, it's just a straight regression. College football. Any thoughts there? Like, what's the latest?
Are we going to do like a week? Are we going to do this week in college? We haven't done that in a long time.
We can do it just because there are like their conference championship.
It's like games. Some big games.
Yeah, let's.
I actually was like the head trader for my operation this week.
Question. So, how do you guys feel about this concept that games are going on so far into the season? It's kind of awesome, isn't it? I mean, there's just games being played. It's like it's almost like as if like bowls, right? The reason we love bowls is there's random games happening all the time. Yeah, this is now the same thing. There's just random games happening right now. Like Georgia's playing Vanderbilt.
Random games, but with less randomness.
For no real reason, right? I mean, why is Georgia playing Vanderbilt? Just to prove to the world that if they had JT Daniels all year,
they're not playing Vanderbilt.
They aren't?
No, that game got canceled. They asked the same question, Jeff.
And they decided not to play it.
They decided
Damn
not to
it.
play. They're like, what's the point?
Yeah.
So sad.
But I mean, Mississippi's still playing LSU. Missouri's
they
playing.
were going to play Vanderbilt up until recently, right?
Correct.
Right, it was canceled.
Yesterday or the day before. Yeah.
And I did not bet the under.
Sorry, guys. I have a day job. Sorry, guys.
It's all good.
Okay, fine. Let's go through the big games this week.
Okay.
The first one, the biggest one that I'd like to talk about is Illinois Penn State. Just kidding. Okay, UAB Marshall. In other times, this would be like a marquee game because it'd be like the early game, the only game on, right? The Conference USA game used to be like the first one on championship Saturday.
Is that a conference championship?
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
You know what the weirdest box score, final score period of the
neutral.
season is the fact that Marshall was undefeated and played Rice as over a 3 TD favorite and got shut out last week.
I remember
It's like the strangest final score. I didn't even try to like figure out and go back and like what happened. I was just like, maybe they just didn't care at all because they knew they were in the title game anyway. But it's weird, just a very, very weird result that has me thinking there might be value on Marshall here, but maybe they just totally punted and had a bunch of opt-outs or something that I didn't find, even though I Googled for it earlier this week. But I have it a little bit higher. So I think it opened more like 6.5, which is where I had it, and you can get 4.5 now. So you're always way lower on Marshall.
Yeah, I was against Marshall last week. I was just like, why didn't I bet the money line? And I'll tell you why I didn't bet the money line, because there wasn't value. There's never value on dogs on big money there's never value betting dogs on the money line when they're big dogs in college football. Just isn't. But I like UAB here. I think they should be. I make them a 2-point favorite essentially. So that's way.
He's been a touchdown off every Marshall game like all year. And I've kept telling him and Marshall covered like their first 6 or 7 games. So I think
it's like the Jets. Eventually they'll be right.
Rufus, so you modeling UAB's games when they weren't FBS?
Well, that was like 3 years ago now, right? No, they just it wasn't they weren't FBS. They weren't a program at all. They shut it down.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't.
So were you modeling them when they weren't a program at all?
They had scrimmages that he
Trick
was
question.
Scraping.
Did you get data from?
I got data from their
Ted
non-games.
I had a call with Ted Knutson today, which was kind of nice. It was nice to talk to him.
I think that's something worth talking about, but I think we should make it through college football first.
Okay. MAC championship. Buffalo minus 13.5 against Ball State.
Balls.
Preston, are you upset that Western Michigan isn't in this game? I feel like you were on Western Michigan a lot this year.
Was I? I don't think I was.
Oh, no.
Honest.
You were on Akron a lot this year.
Was I? They're like the bottom 3 team in the country. I didn't bet a ton
You
of
remember
MAC.
that game
I bet Northern Illinois twice early. I think they split the first 2 games.
I had
but
Akron.
Yeah,
I had Akron in some game. I can't remember who they were playing, but I probably was against Ball State. I've never seen a team
so bad. I remember you texting me that you just looked like a practice or something.
Yeah,
I know what you're thinking of. There was that wild Maction finish Toledo Western Michigan game where they were down like 3 scores in the fourth quarter. There was a bunch of officiating calls where they had first downs. They weren't even giving them the first down, even though the marker said that it wasn't a first down. And then they get like 2 onside kicks. And
no, they got 1 onside kick.
Is it only 1? Okay. That's why you thought that I'm always on Western Michigan, because we actually spiked and binked that one somehow from way behind.
But like that was like, there are games in life, and Western Michigan was a fun team to bet on because of those wide receivers that were super explosive that could in college, those wide receivers that can get separation and can like turn slants into like 80-yard, like nothing. That's fun. Anything on this game, guys? Buffalo, Ball
I think we
State?
both like Ball State. So I don't remember what Rufus's number was, but I think double digits, meaning like 10 is closer to fair. And this has moved up from like 11.5 up to 13.5. I would bet it at 14 for sure if it gets there.
Yeah, I make it.
Oh, you haven't bet it yet?
I haven't bet it either. I don't know why.
Oh, you haven't?
I have it highlighted, but I haven't bet it for some reason.
Buffalo's been crazy good. It's kind of one of those teams you have to just try to play catch up on. But I could get this to being a 14-point spread, which I believe DraftKings is 14 right now, actually. So, if it heads that way and it's more regular, or text your guy and snag some. But, yeah, I like Ball State a little bit. 14 for sure. I'll be buying some.
So, Preston, my number without priors would have been 12.2. And including priors, it's 8.5. So
you know what? I'm glad you made that comment, just because I had to do this for some shows yesterday, which I didn't know was as enlightening as I expected it to be. last week explaining this to a few people, but they said after, like, that was a really good point and a really good way to put it. Thanks. It was the LSU Florida game. And I was trying to explain to people, like, I understand LSU's been pretty bad and they started the season just awfully, and now they're down to their third string quarterback. But I was trying to kind of make the connection of Pryor still holds some sort of value even in week, whatever the week is right now. I don't even know anymore for college football. But I was saying that even though this is plus 23.5 right now, I said with my priors, like, this should be like under 17. Okay. But even if I threw those out completely and I gave Florida every benefit of the doubt in every variable that I account for this season, I basically looked at all of the performance from this season. I still only had that number at 19.
Yeah.
That's like best case scenario for Florida. We're getting 23.5 and they have the SEC title game against Bama coming up that everyone's talking about. We covered it on Daily Wager, Bama at Florida before the LSU game they were supposed to play in a few days. Anyways, I just thought that was interesting. Talking now about Ball State, Buffalo. Buffalo, best case you have a 12 and you're getting potentially 14. It's just too high, I think.
I think Doug gave out the money line on that Florida game, so he's a little better than you are.
He might have texted me to ask if it was worthwhile.
Hold on. I got to send a message now and see what price we can get on this.
Before
my guy.
Before the
pot ends, you're probably going to have some 14. Yeah.
Okay. Pac-12 championship game. SC Oregon.
I know who Rufus likes. I think it is dead on at 3. I'm 2.7. So, I mean, 3.5's out there. I understand why they're getting clipped. USC's had some fluky good wins late that just Slovis pulls it out in the final drive, Slovis. Essentially. Maybe he'll be an NFL guy eventually one day. I know some guys that bet over at 62.5. I did not. I think I have it closer to 65. So I would, I guess, lean that way just because USC's been so poor against the run.
Wait, you have it at 65?
That's what Oregon can do.
You have it at 65?
65.6. Yeah.
So when it was USC Washington, didn't you have it like way low?
Yeah, the difference is Oregon's I think they have like the 7th most turnovers in college football. And my expected points for Oregon and just their grades in general are a lot better offensively than their actual. And then Washington's like the reverse. That was about under 58.5, 58 when it was Washington. USC was also a play. And then it got canceled, obviously, like we know now. But I actually prefer over now at this rate. I think, USC offensively, they're outside the top 100 in EPA per rush. Defensively, they're outside the top 50. And so they're, USC's great through the air. It's like the semi-air raid. And so they're going to be throwing against an Oregon defense that hasn't performed well and an Oregon offense that has and can hopefully not fumble or have the QB throw interceptions as often. I didn't end up betting over. It wasn't enough for me to bet, but that's why I do lean that direction. Is really the swing between Washington and Oregon.
So you have that as a 13-point difference or something between Washington and Oregon?
65.6, and then it would have been like 54. So yeah, almost 12, like 11 and a half.
I have Oregon rated as in terms of total plays relative to average forecasted a 0.1 plus 0.1, so a little more, and overall total ratings of plus 1.6. USC I have is an overall total rating of plus 1.7. Washington I had as a minus 5.3. Yeah, so a pretty big difference there. But so my difference, that's
Washington also had, because the whole question mark was they have so much COVID. Like, are they even going to be able to play the game? And then if so, how many of their offensive guys are going to be out? The QB was also questionable. So that also played a role where I think there was upside to the under potentially.
Yeah, I would have made the total 52.5 Washington USC. And actually I bet the under there. That before the game was moved.
We had talked through. Yeah.
Yeah, we were on the same side, but I move it up to a 59.3 instead of a 65. So.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm basically.
So you might like under then here soon.
I mean, it was
64.5.
It's 64.5. It opened 60.5. Right.
I'm looking at it right now.
It's been better.
That's got steamed up big time. Okay. Yeah. That's something I might like.
I just still have I
could see myself liking it.
Of how bad Oregon sucked against
I say
Oregon
as I log on to bet it right now.
Message your guy.
I'm literally saying, I said, what's best number I can get on Ball State right now? He says plus 13.5 is the best. No 14s in Vegas at the moment.
That is correct. Yeah. Wait that one out. I mean, we might see more 14.
You think, what about the USC? Should I go right now on my under bet?
Yeah. If you want to bet it, you can get 64.5 at certain places.
Okay.
Big Ten
Let's
title.
See, this is like, this is the excitement that we have. Like
Big Ten.
This is what they mean when they say live betting, right?
Yes.
Big
Okay.
Ten championship game, which is Northwestern and Ohio State. Ohio State is giving 20.5 to Northwestern.
Yeah, I'll go first.
Sorry, giving 20. What am I?
I'm going to go first. I like Ohio State here. I laid a little, like I moved, as I said, I went early this week because I could get 10,000 down on Sunday.
Yeah, they had nice limits for these championship games early.
Those came up. I was like, you know what? While these late football games are going on, I'm just gonna like sneak in these bets while nobody's noticing. And yeah, I got 10,000 at minus 20 and 2,000 at minus 19.5, minus 115. So I thought it. Yeah, I know it's going to be played very slow. Northwestern is like they're molasses. So they run a good number of plays. They just suck at getting yards, and they are good at stopping other teams from getting yards. That's my in-depth analysis there. But let's see. I make it 25.5 almost. And the funny thing is, without priors, I only make it 15. So I'm not sold on Northwestern.
So there are two games where Rufus and I disagreed pretty heavily. This is one of them. I'm pretty sure I'm only like 18, and I was able to get 5,000 on plus 21.5 earlier Sunday as well. I waited on totals, but sides they were taking 5 even earlier on Sunday. So it's not. I don't know if it's ever going to get there again. Maybe it does get bet up. I know it's kind of been this battle where it got to 21 and it went down to 19.5 again, then pushed back to 21 and then back to 20.5 where it's settled. So I think there are some different opinions, I should say, on this game. The one I bet for more, or I at least got my fill on, was the under at 58.5 and 58, which I still think 57.5 places. 57's probably the last number I would bet under. But a lot of that's to do with Northwestern. I know, like your priors, for example, it's 25, but looking at this season, it's 15. Like their defense is just elite. It's I think it's their top 8. They're 5th in EPA and they're 8th in success rate. And the reason they're winning games isn't because of their offense. Their offense ranks 91st in EPA, ranks 107th in success rate. They're finding ways. And defensively, I mean, and you talked about the pace obviously being down. If there's a team in the Big Ten this year that can slow down Ohio State to some extent, it's them. And where they're elite is they're 2nd in EPA against the pass. The only team better than them is Cincinnati, and we'll get to that game in a second. And so slowing down Justin Fields in the Buckeyes game, that kind of lines up. And typically, like last year, Ohio State could have relied on a run game where Northwestern's a little bit weaker, but they lost multiple offensive linemen to the NFL. They lost J.K. Dobbins to the NFL. The Ohio State run game hasn't been nearly as effective as it's been in the past years. They just haven't played as many games together either. And then on the flip side, I think Ohio State's defense, which gets crushed on for being so bad this year, because they remember that Indiana game where they gave up like 500 passing yards to Penix, and they haven't been as good in the secondary. It's true, but they still rank like 15th overall. They grade out 15th overall. They're 2nd against the run. Like, you're not going to be able to run against them at all. So overall, I think it's just as conducive to an under before I would bet the side. But at 21.5, I had to take some. I thought it was just – it's hard to get margin at over 3 scores, I think, against this Northwestern defense, period.
So the funny thing is I actually have Northwestern as a team that plays they're running more than an average number of plays, 4 plays more than average a game.
They have a new offensive, and then they got Peyton Ramsey too.
They're not playing slow. They have been great, but I want to ask you, what is more predictive, offense or defense?
Offense,
right? So do you think there is any chance that Northwestern might not be quite as good on defense as they have been so far? Their true level, I mean.
Definitely. I talked to someone about this game and the total. He leaned under, but he didn't think it was a worthwhile bet. I bet it anyway. Northwestern's actually played in 3 games that you would consider had some winds and weather that affected the offenses. So defensively, they may be like overachieving, so to speak, if you were to at least adjust for the weather factors in those 3 games or just take them out completely. And then there's a chance their offense should be better because they've played it in 3 weather games where the winds really affected it. So, yeah, there's definitely a chance that they've overachieved on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, I still think they're pretty inept. But,
yeah, I mean, I have them as the 79th rated offense and the 8th rated defense in college football.
I think that's about right.
Yeah, But yet I still make the total. What do I make it? I don't
You
like
get the total
over.
lower, but you do like Ohio State just quite a bit more.
I do. That's true. I mean, I make the total. I have to check the weather forecast. Just kidding. It's in a dome. At 50, I make the total 59.5.
Okay, let's move on.
Sleeping.
To the Big 12 championship game, which is Iowa State getting 6.5 against Oklahoma. This game is being played at AT&T Stadium, also in a dome, Rufus. So don't worry.
So this is interesting. So without priors, I would make Iowa State a small favorite. I'd make them a 0.5 point favorite, actually. With priors, I make it 5.8. So literally, I'm right on market. So I think this is.
You're not literally right on market.
What's the market now?
The spread is not 5.8.
Yeah, but Jeff, you're talking about a median number. I'm converting that median to a mean.
Okay, and your mean is what?
Yeah.
Literally.
If you look at the market, it's minus 5.5, true price of minus 1/3. No big probability of 50.8%. I don't even have a screen in front of me, but which converts to 5.8.
You're full of shit. Anyways,
yes, I'm full of shit.
Just look up the word literally and we'll be fine. Iowa State, Oklahoma.
It's up to 6.5, huh?
Okay, Preston. So what are you thinking?
Only Chris is 6.5. It's basically 5.5.
Chris is taking a strong opinion there.
I have it 7, so I would lean to the Oklahoma side. I haven't bet it, but I do like under some. I haven't bet that either, but that would be my biggest edge in this game. I think by far Oklahoma's best defense. They are 9th in EPA, 9th in success rate, and that's not accounting. Those are just the raw numbers. I have a weight I give for strength of schedule as well, but the fact that they play in the Big 12 against pretty good offenses regularly, and they're still top 10 in both defensive metrics.
I have number 10.
Really strong. Alex Grange, he came in second year now as defensive coordinator. He came from Washington State, where he was able to put up a pretty good defense alongside Mike Leach for a few seasons in a row when Washington State was winning 10 plus games. So I think they've figured that out. Now the problem is the least efficient offense Lincoln Riley's fielded in the last few years. So they didn't really line this up perfectly like they could have. They're outside the top 25, I think, in a couple of those metrics. Now, they're playing defense.
Wait, Preston, where would you rate the Oklahoma offense now, though? Like, what's your actual rating on them? Because if you make the line 7, you think their defense, I have their defense rated 10th.
Okay, so you have their offense probably inside the top 20 barely?
No, I have their offense 5th in the NFL. Not 5th.
Oh, I'm lower.
In the NFL?
5th in the NFL. 5th in college football.
Then the difference for us is the Iowa State side. I was shocked you had the priors on Iowa State as a favorite, to be completely honest, without priors.
Without priors? So I have Iowa State is the number 11 offense in college football, and I guess I'm just high on them, huh?
Part of it is the fact that
11
it's because they beat Oklahoma earlier.
13 defense.
It was Spencer Rattler's first road game early in the year. Yeah. Oklahoma goes into Iowa State. They lose 37-30. That's probably playing a role as if they had a head-to-head matchup. But no, I'm definitely lower on Iowa State as a whole. I think it's crazy. They have 2 losses, 1 to Lafayette, and they're number 6 in the college football playoff.
Where do you put them? What's your rating for them? Or ranking, I should say, just overall.
Just give me 10 seconds. It's on a different tab.
That's fine. I understand that the struggle of tabs is real. Oh,
I have them 11th, just ahead of Wisconsin, North Carolina.
And where do you have Oklahoma?
I have them basically tied with Notre Dame for 5th.
Okay, see, I have Oklahoma ranked. Crap, I was sorting incorrectly. Yeah, I have Oklahoma ranked number 5, Iowa State number 10.
Okay, so you're slightly higher on Iowa State, but maybe not too much. I mean, we're only 1.1 points difference.
That's good. Yeah.
But anyways, I think it'll be a good game, but I don't know if I'll end up betting it. If I did, it would just be the fact that I'm not sure the market's completely caught up to how good this Oklahoma defense could be. And, Iowa State's solid all around. So, and they're going to try to run the ball with Breece Hall, and he's like their horse, and that's going to eat up possessions. It's what worked when they played earlier in the year. Only Oklahoma couldn't stop it earlier in the year. They've just gotten so much better on that side of the ball since that. That's my look if I had to bet the game right now.
Okay, I make the total 58.6, so I don't really have an opinion there if it's where it was early in the week.
All right. Like the Sunbelt title.
The great thing
I
about
know Rufus
betting,
likes that.
The great
guys,
thing
I
about,
bet Rufus. Do you like
the great thing about betting college football early in the week, aside from the fact that Twitter people are like, he bets early in the week, he must know nothing, is the fact that I don't have to look at the odds until later. I mean, I don't have to look at the odds later. Okay, I'll stop.
Are you done?
I'm done.
I don't want to interrupt you when you're on such a great roll.
run.
Yeah, such a great roll.
That's what my traders look at it instead.
UL Lafayette against the Mormon Killers, Coastal Carolina.
Too soon.
Too
So
soon.
I have a strong opinion here, and
Yeah.
Preston, I think you agree, but maybe not as strong as I agree. I think the wrong team is favored.
And I think the right team
I
is
shouldn't
favored,
say that
but
because I don't actually think the wrong team is favored. What I'm saying is my numbers, my model says the wrong team is favored, which means, but obviously I have a healthy amount of respect for the market, so I would not obviously book it at that price.
give it some time. Maybe the market will get closer to agreeing with you eventually. I have Coastal Carolina a very small favorite. Like I think it's 1.2. It's one something. Yeah, so good enough for me at 4, 3.5. The 3.5s are disappearing at -110 though. There's not a ton left at least offshore. It's Lafayette and Coastal Carolina. I think this is ultimately it. I think earlier this season when they met, Lafayette was laying 9. And I know we've been upgrading Coastal Carolina like crazy. They've played and deserve all the credit in the world. But is it really like a 2 TD swing within the season against the Lafayette team, who, by the way, beat number 6 Iowa State earlier in the year themselves? Like,
you can't use
awesome
that.
on season. Like, there's too much built into Lafayette that I don't think you can. I think this number is definitely, and I've again upgraded Coastal Carolina just as heftily as I could every week, and this is it's just too high.
I'm going to call bullshit, though. You can't call out Iowa State for losing to Lafayette and be like, they must suck, they lost to Lafayette, and then be like, Lafayette beat Iowa State, they're good.
I didn't say that. You misunderstood me. I said that I was giving Lafayette credit for beating Iowa State. I know, but I would say I was giving Lafayette credit for beating number 6 Iowa State.
And you made a point that it was amazing that they'd gotten beaten by Lafayette,
and
we're still in number 6 whatever in the FBS.
Yeah. So I'm giving Lafayette credit for coming off of a bye. Also, that's just wanted to throw that out there. They're going to be better.
So this game is going to close. I bet this game closes under 3. Anyone want to bet me?
I mean, I took 4 and 3.5 even money early. Well, not even that early. This was, but I hope you're right.
Yeah. Coastal Carolina was like 34 seconds from losing just last week against Troy.
Yeah, and I had a
3 plays and they scored to win, but
I got screwed over by that. I had a second half under, or I had some second half.
Oh, dang.
I think it was a second half under that, like, basically just, or was it second half Troy? I think second half Troy.
It happens.
I don't remember. Oh, no. I had a second half Coastal Carolina, but the under. I don't remember. Sorry.
Okay, and we regress.
There's lots of bets on it. I mean, I'm sure you know, Jeff, how many bets there are on a college football Saturday.
But we're only doing the championship games.
Yeah, there's 4 more.
Yeah,
I don't have anything in Clemson Notre Dame, but I know Rufus does like a side, so he can take that quickly.
I like a side in everything here. It seems like I liked Notre Dame at I got them at 11. I wouldn't take it at 10, but if it
10.5 most spots still.
Yeah, I mean, I make it a little over 7. Obviously, I still have a healthy respect for the market, and I lean. Well, actually, I have a strong play on the under.
Correct.
Yeah,
I lean that way. Did not bet it myself, but I think that would be where I'd go. I think an interesting point from their first matchup, because everyone talks about the offense and Trevor Lawrence not playing. Defensively, I think Clemson was taken aback a little early. They took some punches, but at halftime they made great adjustments. I don't think Notre Dame scored for like the first 25 minutes of the second half, and then Clemson was up 10. They went into prevent offense mode. And then Notre Dame scores twice in those final 5 minutes to force overtime, and they end up winning the game in OT. I think those adjustments Clemson made were awesome. They're going to have obviously a lot more time and preparation to put into this one to slowing down Notre Dame and the Irish on offense. And I would definitely look under at these current numbers. I personally think Clemson should be about 10 or 10.5. I'm 10.3. So
you're right on
pass on this side.
All right, we got Tulsa plus 14.5 against Cincinnati. This is in Cincinnati, so home game for Cincinnati. 44.5 is the total. That is a low total.
It is. It opened at 47, didn't it?
Correct.
And let's see the weather. I'm looking at my weather thing. I have the weather I put in before was 41 miles an hour, 41 degrees, 7 miles an hour.
41 miles an hour. That is a.
This would be 35.5 now if that was the case.
Some potential rain, or precipitation, I should say.
This is the other game I know our side number disagreed pretty heavily.
Yeah, I didn't play it. I make it 17.
And I haven't either. Yeah. And I make it close. I was like 12.5, so it's kind of close at 14.5 now with the hook.
Why don't you guys just cross it?
I make it 13.4 with no prior. So
that's closer. This is my main thing.
It's just not worth, like 15, 16, like it. Yeah. The difference between, if I make it 17 and the number's like 14.5, there's not.
You would have bought it at 13.5, but it didn't really get there, and then it popped back after 14s. My thing is that ultimately, I think a lot of people, the narrative, if we want to use that word here, is that Tulsa has been lucky all year because they, I guess, have been. If you want to look at it that way, they've now been down 2 or 3 scores in 4 games that they've won the game outright. And so people look at that and they say, oh, well, like fluky, crazy comeback wins. One of them was with the backup quarterback. Maybe that's part of it. It's kind of fluky variance. But also a lot of it has to do, I think, defensively. Adjustments they've made second halves, Phil Montgomery and their staff have been phenomenal. Like the fact that you hold Central Florida to nothing in the second half. They can't move the ball against you. One of the best offenses of the last few years, every year, this year included, they just don't score on you in the second half. Like, I think that's telling to some degree because you're making adjustments that are working and you're actually giving your offense that's down 2 or 3 scores opportunities to come back and win. And then they've done that multiple times. And so I don't think it's as fluky as people think because they have a top 15 defense, whether it be EPA, success rate, yards per play, whatever it is. And if you look at what Cincinnati has done, who, by the way, will not have played for nearly a month when they finally play this game. Tulsa at least had the Navy game, I think, 2 weeks ago. And that's when they had this got canceled last week and they pushed it back to this weekend. Cincinnati's best defense that they've seen is UCF, who ranks 46th in EPA and 75th in success rate. That's the best defense Cincinnati's seen. This Tulsa side of the ball, which, by the way, incorporates a 3-3-5, which people that have heard me talk about 3-3-5 in the past with Bronco Mendenhall and BYU teams against quarterbacks that haven't seen it before. It's very, very interesting, but it never loses. I am interested in Tulsa at 14.5, especially when this Tulsa against teams like that score similarly to Cincinnati, like Memphis, SMU, Central Florida, couldn't get past, I think it's 24 points. Is the most. UCF scored 24 or 26, I believe. It's hard to cover more than 14.5 points when you're going against a defense that just isn't going to give you more than that. Anyways, so I lean Tulsa for sure. I just, numbers-wise, like a 12.5 and a 14.5 would be a smaller play. So I'll probably end up on Tulsa to some degree, but it won't be a big one.
All right. Final game. Oh, sorry, no, 2 more. Alabama minus 17 against Florida, 73.5. It's going to be a good game. Should be fun to watch, right?
Yeah. I have nothing on the side. I'm right on market, basically 16.7. I do like the under. I took under 75.5 for a little bit, although you can't get much down early in the week in totals, but
I gave you that. I went in on 73 through 74. And so I think you took a little bit after that. It was like the next day.
Did you take the over?
Yeah, I'm on over.
Why don't we just cross?
Big free cross. We should have because we talked somewhat like Monday, I think.
But I mean, again, you said you took over 73.5 and I took under 75.
Most of it's 73, 73.5, 74. It's a mix of all those. Yeah. For me, I mean, I don't know if I just wanted to say, I don't know if people give Alabama enough credit. I know FPI as of last week, this is the best team in the history of FPI's database. Like Alabama, like just to beat Arkansas 52-3 last week, do what they did to LSU, who had been performing well, and then they do what they did to Florida, like beating A&M, who I think is one of the top 5 teams in the country, arguably, or not quite. I think ratings like, but I mean, they deserve to be 5th. That's where the playoff thinks they should be ranked based on the body of work. By 28, I think it was the final. So like Alabama's just been so good. I'm concerned that my over, even though my numbers say it should be higher, if Alabama, because my here, this is what I'm trying to articulate. They're going to
be a blowout game.
They're going to get to like 49-56, which is fine. But if defensively, since that Ole Miss game where everyone remembered, they went back and forth into the 40s every possession. Finally, Alabama got one stop and they barely beat Ole Miss. Since then, their defense has been elite. And if Florida can only get to like 17 themselves, then that's where I lose this, I think, ultimately, is if, Bama maybe has one turnover and Florida just can't keep pace. But if Trask is able to, which we've seen them do against most teams they've played this year, then this is going to fly over anyway. But I'm a little bit concerned that Alabama is just even better than I have currently rated on the defensive side of the ball, just because the last 5 to 6 games have been a different Alabama defense than those first few.
Where would
They're
this
the
have
best
to get
team
to
in the
for
history of the FPI, you said.
Where would this have to get to for you?
Before
to be
the
interested
Arkansas
in-
game, that was what those guys were saying. Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
Where would this have to get to for you to take some Alabama?
I have fair at like 16 point something, 16.2 or 16.4. So
basically same
it's
stuff
not going to
as-
happen. Yeah. I'm not going to take 17.5 though with Florida. It'd probably need to be like 20 before I jump in.
All right, final game. The darling of the Bet the Process podcast, San
Army?
Jose State
Oh.
plus 6.5 against Boise State in Las Vegas. Over under is 56. We got to do a shout out to Brent Brennan, the coach of San Jose State, who I have played craps with in Vegas, and who has turned a team that was like, what did they have, 1 or 2 wins a couple seasons ago?
Back-to-back seasons, like they went 2-10 and 1-11. Like 2
That
years
was the
ago.
year they were our team, right? We only like bad teams generally.
Well, the 3 teams typically are what? Rutgers,
Army.
San Jose State, Army.
Army.
But Army has been decent when we've been picking.
They were decent because we picked them. They used to be bad and we recovered them.
The Jets have overtaken all forever and ever.
Guys, speaking of the Jets, my line, it's not just that it doesn't show value in the Jets this week. I actually have the line higher. I have the Rams number higher than the spread. Like I make it 17.3 and the spread 17.
It's going to
It's a
17
sad
and a half.
day.
Let's
day.
finish this college and then the game and then move on to the NFL.
I'll just say quick because I didn't end up playing it. I talked and I was close to over at 54. And now it's gone. So I should have bet it, but I chickened out. And I only had it close to 57. So I didn't. But I also feel like the San Jose State defense is graded a lot better than they kind of are. So I feel like my 57 maybe was a little short. We'll see where that ends up closing. But side, I have Boise State pretty much right at 7. So 6.5, not enough for me to play them.
Roof?
I make it around 10 actually, without priors. But as you said, San Jose State, your guy.
What about with priors? You make it.
No, with priors I make it minus 10. Without priors I make it minus 7. Boise State. I've laid off of it. But
I'm confused. The priors are better for San Jose State than
minus 10 instead
minus
of
10,
7.
minus 10 regular, minus 7 without priors. Sorry, I might have said it wrong.
You did say it wrong.
So priors help Boise State in this case. Boise State had a crazy game against Wyoming. I was watching that at the end because I had second half wagers on it. It was a huge snowstorm going on. Like it was like a blizzarding, and
it was a blizzarding.
I faded it actually.
It's the same
that was
as
one of my
what's
losses.
happening outside my window right now, where there's like 50-mile-an-hour winds and snow going sideways. No, it's awesome. I got my hat on. I'm ready to go outside.
Okay, let's move on from there.
Okay.
Boise State has seemingly been like this season. I feel like the crappy teams that we used to pay so much attention to this season because it's all been so compressed. Like those teams just don't get I guess it's just because like teams like Coastal just stepped up and were much more Coastal and Cincinnati were much more interesting than the traditional like mid-major schools that are interesting.
Yeah, by the way, Rutgers isn't nearly as bad as normal. This is like we might have to abandon them as a bet the process team.
We haven't really talked about them much this year, so I think
we haven't talked about any. We literally have talked 0 college football this year.
No, we haven't literally talked about 0 college football. We've talked about.
He's working on that word.
You keep using that word incorrectly.
We've talked about fewer college footballs.
Lesser than evils. Okay, NFL. Anything interesting to you people this week?
Yeah, a lot this week for me.
Really?
Yeah,
that's interesting.
It's weird. This week I'm showing a lot, which can't be a good sign. Last week I crushed college football and got crushed in the NFL. Although I didn't have a lot of, I don't know about you, Preston. I didn't have a lot of value in the NFL overall. I had some leans and some I was able to get some good numbers, and so.
Just relative to market and stuff throughout.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. If I have a lean on one side and I'm getting essentially close to like the market no big price, like I'll play it. And
I only ended up on 2 side positions, the Baltimore and then Dallas. I ended up betting -3 the morning of. But other than that, I split 2 totals that I bet. But that was it. I basically had 4 pregame positions, I think, total.
My biggest position was on Cincinnati just because of the number. Like I was able to get I was getting +3.5 -120 when the market was like 3. And I kind of
found a rogue bad price, as they say.
Exactly. Those are
Yes.
amazing. The rogue ways.
Um,
by the 2 picks I gave out on the Bet the Process podcast last week, although they didn't count for the bets for our tracking because I didn't give out a number, Jeff. So in the future, I need to be giving out numbers.
Those ones are going to win more often, for sure.
Of course.
Yeah.
So wait, maybe I should not give out numbers then, because I care about my monies.
67%. Yeah.
But no, those ones won, like Arizona and Baltimore. Yet NFL got crushed otherwise. But on to this week.
cool story, bro.
Thanks.
Moving on. Who do you like this week, Roof? Should we go down the slate? I don't think we should get on the slate. We don't have that much time.
Okay. So the team I like the most here is New England. It's more that Jeff is giving me the cringe.
No, I like New England. We like New England also.
It's so interesting how
when it popped out of the magical machine, I looked at it and I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it."
Oh crap! Do I want to win? Should I say a number or not? Okay, what's the market number?
Don't say a number. I don't care if we get tracked by Betstamp.
Okay,
it's 2 at Chris, right? Like they're definitely an option. I'll have to shop around and get some cheap teaser options.
It seems like 2. Yeah, it's 2. I got it at +3 -120 and some +2.5 even money. And I make the Patriots a favorite here. I think they should be a 2-point favorite. It's so Miami last week were +17 in turnover EPA against Kansas City in one game. They gained 17 expected points off of turnovers, and yet they still required a touchdown, a last-minute score just to get a backdoor cover.
Yeah.
Right. So they were still down 7. They were down 20 at one point in the second half, despite at that point being +17 in turnover. So I just don't think Miami's that good. Like on a per play basis this year, they're below average.
I think they're the only team that's had a turnover in every game this year. Or an interception, I should say.
It feels like Xavier Howard's making these crazy plays. It seems like they're getting a defensive or special teams touchdown every week. But always. I have them as below average in both rushing and passing yards per play on both sides of the ball. And I think they're not quite below average on play success, but in New England is a team that it seems like they're extremely high variance. They played some really, really good games and some really, really bad games. And it seems like the market continuously overreacts to recency there. After Denver and San Francisco, the market thought they were all bad. After the first few games in the season, they were, a Super Bowl contender with Cam. Then they had another good game, and now then they got absolutely smoked last weekend by the Rams. And now, people are like, is Cam going to get benched? I think this is, the zigzag thing. This is time to buy.
I think it's a perfect matchup too. And you look at Miami's defense. You mentioned all of the turnovers, and probably they're running good, so to speak. They're also 9th against the pass in success rate, but only 21st against the run in success rate. So with Cam Newton as an option to run, just the fact that the Patriots with Harris and everybody else can at least run the ball to some extent, I think effectively. That's where Miami's been weakest. And you're not going to give them opportunities to make these crazy interception plays and stuff. So I lean your guys' way as well. I have it basically picked, though not quite New England a favorite.
All right,
Jeff. Jeff, what does your model have?
What's that?
What does your model have?
We have.
What's your number?
New England should be a favorite.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay, I like Houston +7. Is it still +7? It's still +7.
Yep, you can get
7.5
sevens.
14 at Pinnacle.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I think this is a game where, first off, Indy's +41 in turnover EPA this year. Houston's -30. And if you take away their game on Thanksgiving where they were +12, it's even, it's 12 less. But that's a difference of 71 points based on turnovers between these two teams. That's ginormous. And you don't really expect Deshaun Watson to be someone who's going to throw a ton of interceptions. A large part of that's been fumble luck. I think this number, I think that there's market is pricing in potentially the fact that Houston just may not have anything to play for. And I think I'm not a psychologist. I don't know what if Romeo Crennel has lost the team, but he seems like a guy that people like. Players seem to like him. I don't know. I'm not pricing in anything regarding that, and so that's why I like Houston.
I'll say this about this game, which I haven't bet straight, but at 7.5 minus 114, actually, I would bet that, to be completely honest. So I made a play on a divisional future at the Titans are minus 160 versus the Colts. And so you can check and see where your price was. Yeah, that's like 61.5% break even, and I'm like 64.5% true line, minus 183, I believe. So
I make it minus 225.
Wow, so you're even higher than me.
69.2. I like Tennessee. Awesome. I'm bullish on Tennessee. I'm bearish on Indy just in general.
Right, and so this is the thing. Like Tennessee has the tiebreaker, and they both are 9-4. And so for me, I think where the edge lies, though, is this week itself, and it's the fact that more than likely, I don't think the market was pricing that Tennessee's now going to be going up against what is more than likely not Matthew Stafford under center for Detroit. And I think the market is mispricing Houston, Indianapolis. I haven't taken +7. I would definitely take 7.5 if that's going to be available in a few days. I have it closer to 5. So I like the Houston side to some extent. And so I think that really the majority of that market discrepancy between your number, my number, and then the minus 160 price is, I think, the two matchups that those teams have this week.
That's a good explanation. I like it.
Next up.
I'm glad you lean the same way. Next up. Where are we going? Where are we going here?
Let me plug that. I wrote an article about that minus 160. It went up yesterday.
Sweet.
Check my Twitter
I
feed.
better like I have some Tennessee.
You're gonna get 7 more readers for that.
Weeks.
Good for you.
Thank you.
So the rest. So I like Las Vegas. That's back down to -3. That's tomorrow. Las Vegas started out the season very well. They were an average of a plus 3.3 game grade their first 11 weeks. They're a negative 7.7 their last 3 games. And during those games, they're negative 33 in turnover EPA from turnovers. So basically, they're losing double-digit points per game the last 3 games due to turnovers, and it's hard to win when you're doing that. They got blown out by Atlanta. They just have not looked good. But again, I think that recency does matter, but you can't throw out the body of work. And I mean, are they, Preston, you have to tell me this, are they substantially less healthy right now than they were?
I don't think they are. Josh Jacobs, I think, has missed some games, but like how effective is he as a running back, or how impactful is he ultimately? I think they're probably better with him, but nothing that should explain the last few results. I'm 4.2 for what it's worth. You can get, I think Pinnacle's -3, almost plus money right now. So yeah, I would lean your way for sure. I haven't bet this one either, but we'll see where it goes.
I took -3 Monday morning, but I mean, the Chargers they have a below average game grade, according to my numbers, each of the last 6 games. So I just don't think they're that good. I think there's this notion because Ed Teach keeps pushing them, I guess. I don't know that they're good. Like Herbert somehow has he has a good QBR actually, but
let me say something. I'm going to interrupt because that's what Jeff usually does. But this whole Chargers thing, I found it interesting, like even in mainstream media, which I'm more involved with. People have talked up.
Preston, for the record, you very politely interrupted, which is not what I would do.
You just keep talking over them until they finally just feel like they have to stop.
Yeah, exactly.
But this Chargers thing is interesting because I think people are trying to be smarter. And in the act of trying to be smarter and talking about how the Chargers have lost all these one-score games and how they've actually are a better team than what the box scores have said, and they're performing better, and they've maybe been unlucky in certain situations, and Anthony Lynn, this and that. But by talking about that, like it's not Ed Teach, like he's not affecting the entire Chargers market. He said he was wrong on the Chargers, by the way. Yeah. Well, yeah, I know he was before the season, but like he's not affecting and impacting the Chargers market at this point in Week 15. But I think the perception of the Chargers has gotten like cute sharp, if that's like a term I can put it. Like people are saying, oh yeah, the Chargers are actually better than their record, which is probably true a few weeks ago, but like I'm not sure if that's the case anymore, especially when they're going by Raiders team that obviously, like you've said, have been underachieving the last few weeks. So it's just interesting where the Chargers dynamic has gone from most people, the common viewer will say they suck, like they can't win games, Anthony Lynn's awful. Then you're like, oh well, let's try to be smarter about it. Actually, the Chargers are good. Or the fact of the matter is, like, the Raiders are still quite a bit better than the Chargers, in my opinion. So I think 4.2 is fair. I don't even know if you said what your number is. Are you higher than that even? Like 5 range?
Yeah, a little over 5.
Maybe it was the 3 sharp professional bettors on TAN that also moved the Ravens game. So I'm not sure if you guys saw that reported.
Wait, what was it?
I missed it.
Did they report that the sharp bettors on TAN moved the line?
I mean, TAN reported that there's 3 sharp bettors that are on TAN moved the line. It was I think Sizzle did one of those, screenshotted it, circled it, and made a joke about it.
Sizzle's our screenshotter. He shares all the people that I can't access anymore, like Darren Ravel.
Actually, he must have so many burner accounts to get access to these different people that no longer let him follow him.
I only think you need one.
Sizzle
burner
could be a
account,
girl
Jeff.
for all we know too, so we shouldn't just assume that he's a boy.
Fair enough.
Have you guys ever not bet a game and then regretted that you didn't bet it, and then you look back at the box score and realize it wouldn't have won, and then the feeling inside you get that you saved money?
Yes.
Like the Suns, all I do is bet the Suns every preseason. All I do is get 4 points of closing line value and then lose. And I finally passed because LeBron and Anthony Davis were playing tonight. I'm +4, and it got to 3.5, and then they were up 13 within 4 minutes. And I hadn't looked at the score since, and they lost by 5. So I'm just extremely happy right now.
I love you, Preston, but you just quoted out about a game that you didn't actually bet, and it wasn't even
sweating the game that he didn't bet.
An NBA preseason game.
I was sweating one glance at the app. That was the sweat right there.
I mean, it was a one glance sweat. It was a light. It was a little bit of light.
It was a sweat of a game.
There was some light moisture.
I wasn't talking about the sweat. I got no problem with the sweat. It was just the explanation of the relief, which was awesome.
Should we continue through the NFL? I mean,
absolutely.
Jeff, what have you guys bet in the NFL? Have you guys fired yet?
We only have 2 games. We have
Pats and then
Pats and the Vikings.
The Vikings. Okay.
Yeah.
We
have had very few NFL pre-games this year. We probably have averaged anywhere between 3 to 5 pre-games, and we're not.
When you hit 87% at halftime, why would you bet before the game starts?
Exactly. I'm thinking of quadrupling my NFL second half betting, and when I do, I'll let you know. So
let
you
me know.
Can go the other side.
I think you should quadruple your pre-game betting and cut your second half betting, because the do factor.
Dude, I feel like our second half NFL right now is impervious to jinxing. So that's something. Because I've been talking about.
We tested it though too. 3 weeks ago, you sent me one of your second halves, and I bet it, and you're on a 22-1 run, and the only one you lost.
You were on a 22-1 run with second half.
No, but
it's not that good.
It's been pretty good. And yeah. I mean, every time I've sent you one this time, Rufus, it's
you
won.
You sent me the Ravens Browns over, which I showed 4 cents of value on it, and I know you're
fire away.
Fire away.
Yeah.
4 cents is 4 cents.
Exactly. 4 cents plus the Jeff.
Hey, real quick, I wrote an article on Sunday night that never ended up getting published, but the 2 games I showed value on early look Sunday night: Vikings -3, although it's priced out a little more now. Most of them are -120. And then the other was the Saints, which I didn't want to bet, though, because I'm not sure if Breeze is going to play or not.
No, he's definitely
I'm curious
not playing.
because you guys are both pro Saints. Was that announced today? I may have missed it.
Based on the line, if
move 4 to 3, does someone know? Or do you think that with Taysom Hill, this should still be 3?
No, I think if Breeze were playing, it'd be less than 3.
Well, of course. But do you think this is fair, though, if Hill plays?
Yeah.
Okay. I would bet. I would bet -3 smaller. I think if Hill's.
I make it Kansas City -3.1.
Oh, you like Kansas City?
If Hill's playing, I think it should be closer to 5.5. And if Breeze was playing, I have it 1.7. So I would have bet +4 for sure. But I ended up passing because he's just a question mark, and I didn't want to play anything yet until I know who's actually playing.
I'm dubious that Breeze is playing.
So basically, I think the drop off from Breeze to Hill is 3.8 points for me.
I'm dubious that's that big a drop off.
I'm dubious that you're dubious.
Which through a number 3 is actually probably more value than most 3.8 points. So yeah, I don't know. I love Taysom Hill, alumni represent, but I hope Breeze plays just because I want to see where they're at there. But I might bet Kansas City if Hill's a go and it's a cheap.
What did you guys? I mean, we all probably watched that Philly game last week. I mean, how much if you had a blame pie? How much of the blame pie would have gone to Taysom Hill in that game?
Well, not much. He threw 1 pick, but I mean, his numbers were fine in general. He made 1 deep ball that was great, and was it to Sanders, I think, in the end zone for a TD. And he didn't run very effectively. I think that's I think Peyton's kind of trying to limit how much they run him, but then they're down 17-0. You can't run him as frequently either. But I will say this, in all of the NFL guys, like ESPN, anywhere else that used to play, and they're like, oh, well, that was an obvious result. They didn't say it, until after the fact. But it was an obvious result. Like, no one's seen Jalen Hurts play yet. Like, we don't have any game film on Jalen Hurts. Like, of course the Saints defense that had given up 2 touchdowns in like 50 possessions. Of course they struggled against Jalen Hurts. So now whoever plays Jalen Hurts this Sunday will be fine. I think it's Arizona, right? Like they're going to blow him out. But that's the discussion now after the fact. But I don't know. I think Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia might just be a little bit better than people are giving credit for. I think Philadelphia I think it's more a hit and knock on like how bad Carson Wentz has been as a whole, to be completely honest. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens because we really only have one data point. But I didn't really knock the Saints too much. But I think it was a little bit surprising their defense was so poor in the first half.
Preston, I think clearly the strategy should be for teams now to just put in new quarterbacks
every week. Like your long snappers
for all the big weeks.
You could just roster 3 long snappers and then at least 13 quarterbacks, and
it'll be amazing.
It's a good point.
You have your deep long snapper, your medium long snapper, and your punt long snapper. But I actually show value in Arizona this week, actually. And I took Arizona -5.5. I make it -8.5 true price.
But what would you make it if it was Carson Wentz in there?
I would probably make. Honestly, I probably wouldn't make it as high.
That's what I'm saying.
You hate
young
I hate
quarterbacks.
Regardless of who they are,
do you
know I hate young quarterbacks?
Because historically they don't do well.
Because the data, even just, I'm throwing out the stuff like 20 years ago. There, this is literally. I mean, look at what Tua struggled. Herbert's played pretty well actually, but I mean, it's just even if you even though Hurts played well last week, you're gonna have some bumps. You're gonna have some growing pains.
Okay, so Joe Burrow. So this is sort of here's the problem with this. And we've said this all along, and I have no idea how far back your sample size goes that you're using.
Forever.
But the way that we let young quarterbacks play now, when we used to not let them play for a long time, especially like the really good ones that got drafted early, they would keep those guys under wraps for a few years.
Yep. Jeff, and that's what I'm saying. I've actually looked and made sure that this.
Well, that's why I asked you. I don't know how far your thing goes back, but my point is that, and then you just did a random sample set of rookie quarterbacks this year, and you took out the fact that Joe Burrow had played pretty well this year. I would assume, right?
Yeah, the Bengals played well. For a rookie, he's played well. I wouldn't say he's. I mean, how much is the fact that the Bengals just suck versus? I
think he played pretty well, Rufus.
Okay, the Bengals have been bad.
Pretty all right.
Yeah.
The Bengals have been bad as a team, though. Agree?
I think that's very hard to disagree with. Yes, I agree.
Where would you say Burrow was playing like a above league average quarterback this year?
He was below. He's 24th in
below.
QBR.
Exactly. Hurts is being priced as if, where would you say Hurts is an above league average quarterback right now going forward?
He's 22nd in EPA.
Hurts is? Right, but I'm
talking about Burrow.
He's not Burrow.
Okay.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying.
I was curious.
I would price Hurts like a bottom 5 quarterback right now, probably.
So Nick Foles, Gardner Minshew, Drew Lock range?
I would probably, just that's not to say that Hurts, obviously, I think Hurts could be way better, but I just don't think, I think it takes time and experience. And it's very rare for somebody to come in and light the league on fire.
Would you guys buy or sell an Oklahoma quarterback right now with their opportunity in the NFL? It's fascinating, right, to think about all these Oklahoma quarterbacks that have come into the NFL. And
you're talking about the Riley-centered ones the last few years?
I'm talking
about the Riley-centered. I'm talking about the Riley-centered ones. What?
Hurts is more of an Alabama quarterback in my mind, but
no, but his best year was with Oklahoma, right, from a statistical standpoint.
Well, it's the year he threw the most.
Right. He had a very odd Alabama career, right? He came in and it looked like he was going to be amazing. And
he was good. It's just that Tua was better or was
I think the Mayfield one's the biggest. I think that's the most intriguing talking point just outside of the betting of this all, because Like he went from walk-on to transferring to quarterback under Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma, and I don't even recall.
Number one overall
he
pick.
won the Heisman to the number one overall pick, to being bad for a Browns that weren't coached well at all and had nothing in place that are now fixing that. We've seen it. To like the last month performing really well. He's 9th in QBR as a whole this season. He's, I think, 12th in EPA amongst quarterbacks. Like Baker Mayfield actually is like if the best, I think, case study has enough, because Kyler Murray and what he does with his legs has been, fascinating. And Arizona's good, but like if Baker Mayfield has made it, then theoretically so can the others, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But Preston, would you say there's some correlation between how Baker Mayfield, how Jalen Hurts, and how Kyler Murray end up playing in the NFL? Would you say
correlated to what they like learned at Oklahoma or something?
No, just overall. If I told you that Baker Mayfield ends up becoming a Hall of Famer, conditional on that, would you say Kyler Murray is going to be better or worse than if I didn't tell you that?
Oh, I don't know if there's any correlation. It's just like the possibility, certainly. But yeah, like Kyler Murray, I mean, wasn't he drafted 8th or 9th by the Athletics? Like he was going to go pro in Major League Baseball. There's another one. Oh, now I'm the number one pick in the NFL. I might as well go pro there. But it definitely has a lot to do with what happened in their body of work in college. But I don't think if Baker Mayfield, like, just because Baker Mayfield is good, it doesn't make Kyler Murray good.
No, it doesn't. But I'm saying,
but I think it's definitely more possible than if like none of them are good. That the fourth quarterback has a chance.
I understand.
Like if Rattler in 2 years.
Right. I'm not saying 100% correlation, but you are saying that conditional on knowing Baker Mayfield became a Hall of Famer, you think it's
the possibilities there. If all three of these guys busted,
your expectation
and
for
Riley had a
Murray,
quarterback,
yeah.
Like if all three of these guys busted, and there was another Lincoln Riley quarterback in a few years, Spencer Rattler.
He's not going to get drafted.
And he gets drafted. Let's say he won't, but like let's say he did. Like I would say that there's more evidence that it didn't work in the NFL than had Baker Mayfield worked, and the other two don't. That the fourth guy, I think, there's probably a correlation there that it's at least more possible than if all three had just totally botched it. But how to like quantify that correlation exactly?
I mean, but then the question is,
my question was literally just saying, okay, if you knew Baker Mayfield was very successful and like you were you just somehow hadn't observed Kyler Murray, he played at the same time. You would expect, given that Kyler Murray would be, your I guess mean expectation for him would be a little bit higher than it would be had I not told you that information.
I guess now that I've thought about it for 2 minutes, I'm not sure I know the answer to that, or I feel confident saying one way or the other, to be honest.
I think
there actually maybe there is more of a correlation than I actually originally was thinking. I don't know.
I mean, his preparedness and his system,
so Rufus,
whatever.
You realize this was the root of this entire question that I started.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the only thing that would change people's opinion is on the extreme. I think if all of them turn out to be really good, Spencer Rattler probably gets drafted higher. If all of them turn out to be really bad, Spencer Rattler doesn't get drafted. If they're all reasonable or all like, or some up or down, no one's going to really think.
Now, what's interesting is that's just the perception, though. Now, whether or not it actually makes Rattler's chances of being and staying as a quarterback in the NFL different, who knows? But the perception certainly will change.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll just have to wait for Spencer Rattler to come out. So
please, Spencer.
Spencer.
Did you guys have anything else, or is that it for the NFL?
Rufus, is that it? Can we let our
Tampa Bay, Atlanta, Seattle, Washington, just a couple other good games?
Yeah. So Atlanta, it looks like with the line move there, it's in territory close to being a play on Atlanta. I have it is close to is about 4, 3.85. So, it's a kind of game where it's like if I can get a number that's a little bit off market, just a little like a few cents better, I'll play it. But I'm probably not going to play it at a widely available number.
Got it.
And I would sort of say the same thing with. Well, actually, right now Cleveland Giants has been off the board. The question:
how do you guys factor in Washington football team, Alex Smith with a hurt calf on the same leg that he had restored versus Dwayne Haskins in the Seattle matchup?
I'm assuming Haskins right now, and with Haskins, I make it a line 5.7 to Seattle.
Okay.
I don't think there's that big a difference between the two.
I don't actually either.
Haskins is more of an unknown at this point. I mean, he's like Alex Smith. I think Haskins in a way helps Washington's chances of winning. I think probably
Money
Seattle is a
line-wise.
bigger favorite. But if you think about it, Haskins is a higher variance guy. Just the fact that Alex Smith, just like, he's
always been
check down
Mr. Low
Charlie.
variance.
He's
Yeah.
like I think Eric Eager was quoting some numbers to me on his he has the extremely low percentage of plays that are turnover worthy and bad throws, but also a really low percentage of plays that are great. So he's basically just he does fine. He just checks down all the time. I mean,
okay.
but,
So
yeah.
Haskins to me is the ultimate in the example of this is a guy that back in the day would never played early. And since he played poorly, people basically just think there's no chance that guy could ever be a good NFL quarterback. And I guess I just feel if you hear things that people say about him in college, how completely accurate he was and all this kind of stuff, I don't know. I would take a chance on him. Maybe not this week, but it's interesting that you guys are both saying he's not very much of a downgrade from Smith. So maybe we see some good line move to Seattle and we get a chance to back Washington.
What's interesting is just
how good their defense is.
The coaching staff gave up on him so soon, and we don't know what goes on in the locker room, but he's
That's
obviously
there
was some maturity issues.
It's crazy to me.
I agree because it's Alex Smith's obviously not the future of that franchise. Why wouldn't? But at the same time,
neither is Kyle Allen. Come on.
No, of course not. But there's loyalties, just like the Turner family, the Allen family, and the Turner family. They have to get their Christmas cards from. Rivera needs to get his Christmas cards from those guys.
I think there's a chance outside of maybe Rivera, what's not his guy or all that type of stuff. Their defense is really, really good, and it's been even better the last 2 weeks. They're number 2 against the pass and success rate. They're 13th against the run, and Seattle has the running backs that are running well anyways. I think there's a chance that they knew, because you're talking about variance, and Haskins obviously a wider distribution, higher variance quarterback. Alex Smith is the bottom end of the variance range.
Yeah.
And they just realized with our defense being this good, we might, on average, win more games with Alex Smith, or at least be in more with opportunities to win games with him. And so I think they prefer Smith ultimately for that reason, because I think they realize, hey, we have a top-tier defense, and this division stinks. We have a real shot at winning.
Do you think how
good
do you think their defense actually is?
How about some Washington money line?
Where Preston, where do you rank their defense in the NFL right now?
Personally, I have it 6th. That's probably about right, but maybe you're a lot lower than.
Yeah, I'm 20th.
How? How are you 20th?
Because they hadn't. I mean, they played well in recent weeks, but overall, I will say this.
I only said 6 because that's what I remember, but it's 7th max. Let me check now, but okay. I just did numbers again Monday.
I'm just going to bet some Washington money line right now.
Do it. I think if Haskins goes, then it's definitely.
Tell me what price you're getting.
I think Seattle will struggle moving the ball, and I've been Russell Wilson homer all year long.
Well,
they're going to actually they're going to run a lot.
You can't throw the ball to the right side of the field. Do you see what he did against Roethlisberger? It was like a brick wall. It was like Dikembe Mutombo over there, just every time he threw it to the right side, boom. Did you all watch the Pittsburgh-Washington game?
I didn't watch most of it. No, I didn't have any action.
Who won, Rufus? Was it a close game?
The football team won. I just like saying that.
All right.
Okay, so wait, on the season, let's see. I have Washington. Okay, rush defense. They have been good. They have been good, but I think the thing is, my prior was them being so bad because they were so bad.
Did Chase Young play last year?
They're loaded with defensive talent too. I'm surprised you're 20th.
Well, I think it's a flaw in my numbers, to be quite honest. Because
right.
He hates the young guys, I guess.
The Washington had their defense was mismanaged for so many years. I'm a football team fan, so I've followed this closely. They had John Barry as a defensive coordinator, and then
John Taylor,
somebody else, John without an H, I think. I think that was his name. I don't know. He but they had awful coordinators. They had my personal favorite, Jim Haslett. He who I once yelled at a Las Vegas Locos game in the first row, and he got so upset at me he turned and yelled, "Shut the fuck up" to me. It was great because he was trying to hold a team meeting. But
Yeah, I looked it up, Rufus. It's 6th. I remembered correctly. Adjusted EPA, they're 5th in the NFL. If EPA defensively adjusting for schedule. I'm 6th with everything that I incorporate in. So yeah, that's a crazy gap.
I just haven't moved them enough. And I make the number online, like in line with the market here.
Maybe I'm a little too heavy, but
I haven't moved them that much just because of how bad. I mean, or they have moved, but it's just they're moving from such a bad spot because that and because the defense was so mismanaged. But I mean, Jack Del Rio, if you look at what he's done, he's been successful basically turning defenses around everywhere he's been. One thought I had is that, and it's not just him. I mean, if you look at like Cleveland and Kevin Stefanski and that way that offense has progressed, is that do you think with good coaches, especially new coaches, you're going to see teams improve throughout the season a little bit more because they haven't had the practice time
more rapidly or more frequently? Yeah, that's fair.
Because defense, especially on the defensive side of the ball, like cohesion is a big thing. It's not just talent; it's about how players play together and trusting each other. And all
that was the big story with the Chiefs last year. Is they brought in the new DC, and it took them like 8 or 9, 10 weeks or whatever, and then. Or maybe they were changing a scheme then. I thought it was his first year potentially. But anyway, like the final 68 weeks of the year, they like were much, much better defensively than they were at the start. And everyone was talking about, well, we just had to learn the system and figure it out. And then they gave up 24 really quick to start their playoff games. And so I don't know if it actually was a thing. But that was conversation that I think most people that work in the NFL will say absolutely you need some time, especially on the defensive side.
All right, let's. I have a game I want to play with us to finish this out. Unless there's any other games that you have value in, Rufus, that you want to talk about.
So I like the Packers. I do not understand why that number is less than double digits. I took it at 8.5. No, I laid 7.5 something minus money, but
have you been betting against Carolina regularly?
Yeah, I've leaned against them or bet against them. I haven't been a big Packers guy, but the Packers, I mean, they're number 1 in the NFL in passing offense according to my numbers. They've been really good in areas that are repeatable. They have not been particularly fortunate in terms of turnover luck. I mean, they have been slightly fortunate,
Correct.
but for a team that we came in expecting to be like an 8-8 team, to be 10-3 without a ton of turnover luck. Like, I mean, it shows they've been playing well in areas that are like really fundamental to being a good team. And like Aaron Rodgers probably should be the league MVP right now, even though
they're number 1 in success rate in the league. Ahead of Kansas City, number 2.
Like this isn't a mirage. This is like they're quite good.
Their defense struggles, but that may be like speaking to turnovers, or the defense is less predictive anyways in general. Interesting. I wonder if you like the Packers as a whole, like in the futures market, or if you've taken any the last few weeks.
Okay, so that's let's move to that, because that's the actual question that I want to play. The game I want to play. So if we were to do a draft right now, and we were going to do Super Bowl winner,
what if we did a Calcutta?
Well, that would be
maybe we should for a podcast.
I think we
can do that. We can do that next
Calcutta.
week.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
we need to get some other people on it.
Okay.
I think that's a fantastic idea because Calcuttas are amazing.
I got it, Rufus. It's a great idea. Now, can we stop and just talk about the exercise that I want to do, which is if we were to draft right now the Super Bowl winner, that's all you get paid off as the Super Bowl winner. Kansas City would be the number 1 pick for sure, right? There's no arguing that, right?
Yes, they would be for me.
Rufus, they would be for you? I think
number 2 is probably the same for most of us, too.
The Saints?
Yeah.
Okay.
I hate to say it. I think probably. I mean,
okay, so number 2 is the Saints.
I hate the Saints. Just to me, don't feel like they have a lot of upside, and I'm also scarred by postseasons past.
Is number 3 based on what we just talked about? Probably Green Bay.
No, Pittsburgh. Got to be Pittsburgh over Green Bay.
I'm a little lower on Pittsburgh. For me, it would be Green Bay, just because they're in the conference that doesn't have the Chiefs.
Yeah, but you're gonna have to beat the Chiefs anyway, most likely.
Yeah, but
let me see. Okay,
more likely to beat the Saints than the Steelers are to beat the Chiefs.
False. I actually have Green Bay too. I have Green Bay 10.4%, Pittsburgh 9.2.
Okay, so there you go. So where are the Saints? 4th?
No, Saints are 22%. I'm just saying.
Okay, so Green Bay's 3rd. Yeah. Got you. Okay. I have the Ravens still if they were to, like, for sure would have a better shot than Pittsburgh if they were to make the playoff. They're not 100% to make the playoff
conditional
yet.
on that, really?
So conditional, I'd probably, at this point, they're like 90% probably to make the playoff.
90. I have 93%, but I still have them only as 7% to make the Super Bowl, and I have Pittsburgh 19% to make the Super Bowl. So
wow, you're still pretty heavy on Pittsburgh then. Man, they worry me. Buffalo's making a run up too, though. I think they would be like the sexy pick, like number 5 or 6.
I got them 11%. I have the Chiefs as a coin flip to make the Super Bowl, and I know I'm probably low.
Okay, so wait. So we just said we went through this and we got to basically we got to Green Bay, we got to Pittsburgh.
But wait, Preston, you would make Pittsburgh 4?
No.
Who's 4 for you?
I would bet that I would take the extra like 7 to 10% the Ravens maybe miss the playoffs. I would just go Ravens that they make it.
Yeah, but okay.
I don't think they make the
playoffs. They're going to be playing on the road.
Yeah, that's not a huge thing this time around. Yeah, this time.
And it may be the
Steelers. If the Steelers got the 1 seed, it would suck. But I'm betting on that. I think
they're a lower seed.
A little longer, but Ravens probably. Then I would go Steelers. Then I would go Bills. Then I would go Rams.
The thing is, Pittsburgh, if they're in as the number 2, they're not going to have to play Kansas City until the conference championship, whereas Baltimore is going to have to face them earlier. So they'll have to.
I think the Ravens are slightly better than the Steelers, anyway. Still, that's what it's conditional on for me. And so I just need them in the playoff, and I feel pretty good about it.
Since what? I mean, it feels like, look at the number, like the betting market or the betting line, Pittsburgh, Baltimore a few weeks ago. I mean, Pittsburgh was clearly priced as the better team by a fairly wide margin.
And the time they played before that, a few weeks before. Well, that's because the Ravens had COVID. They had
before that.
Starters.
But even before that, like.
The Ravens were like
Ravens were
at home.
You're right. The Ravens were 4
doesn't have COVID in his model.
Ravens were 4 at home. You're right. Sorry.
There's 3.5 maybe some places. But yeah, I would take the gamble on the Ravens. I think there's more upside there. But if you wanted a long shot, the team I would take a shot on that I still think has the potential just because their offense is so dang good is the Seahawks. And I'd probably draft them higher than most people.
Okay.
Yeah. And by the way, actually, I only have Pittsburgh a half a point better than the Ravens, but yet I still have their Super Bowl probability so different, which to me must mean the path through the playoffs is going to be that much more.
Well, the Steelers have a pretty good shot still at maybe getting the 1. Not a good shot, but there's a chance they get the 1 seed if the Chiefs drop 1 or something. Yeah. So that's a lot of it there.
Okay. So if we did a Calcutta, would you guys want to do a Calcutta where the Super Bowl winner wins 100% of the pot?
No, we got to make it a little more fun than that.
All right. Yeah, you have a percentage points for each win. Yeah.
Okay.
And we could have something for like, I don't know.
Biggest blowout?
Yeah. So something fun in there too. Or something for the team that –
something Jets related?
The team – yeah. No, you're right. We need to have non-playoff team yeah. Like the team that gets the number 1 pick gets a certain amount too. Like 2% of the pot or something.
So you're saying start it from next week going forward or something. So we're drafting every team.
I wasn't thinking that, but I was just saying.
No, that's too complicated. Okay. He was making things too complicated.
Just the playoffs.
I like games, man. That's one thing that is, to be true.
Have you played Pandemic? Have you played Pandemic?
Maybe not recently.
Yeah. Supposedly it's.
I played it back in March.
Supposedly it has a very different tone now because of what's happened this year.
Oh, I did. I played that. That's interesting. My mom got that for like my brother or sister for Christmas a few Christmases ago. And I played that once. And now everything's gone to hell. Yeah.
See how it feels.
Do you remember Ed Miller's tweet at New Year's last year? He's like, any year where there isn't global war, or there isn't a world war or a global pandemic is a good year. Like we've had, this was a good year. Hopeful next year will also be a good year. And then this year we have a global pandemic.
All right.
Let's do this. We'll figure it out next week. We'll get a couple more people on. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I like
that
idea.
Let's do it. Okay.
Or maybe not next week. Sorry. If we're only doing playoffs, we'll a couple weeks. But you know what I mean.
We can do it right before the playoffs.
I think doing it before while we still have some uncertainty in who makes the playoffs. There's more
so maybe just making the playoffs, you get like 1%.
Yeah, let's do it. Like next week is a holiday. Let's find a couple other people. Let's do it.
Okay. Playoff wins are worth a certain amount. We'll come up with hell, we can even ask. I mean, people on Twitter can suggest payout structures they want to see.
I'm gonna have to create a spreadsheet.
It'll be fun.
It's hard.
Yeah. Gonna have to get my hands dirty.
You'll get your assistant to do it. It's fine.
That's true. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. And with that, we'll talk to you guys next week when we'll do a live Calcutta. You just wait. It'll be amazing. On this week's Bet the Process podcast, we have probably our favorite guest that we normally have. We have Preston Johnson. Actually, we say that about everyone. So Preston, though, is a dear friend. We talk a lot of college football, literally more college football than we've talked about the entire season. And then we end with a bunch of NFL discussion and a teaser for next week. So with that, let's start the process.